My name is Jex Harlan. They called me Glitz, because I could turn a cargo hold of worthless rock into a fortune and walk away with a grin sharp enough to cut diamonds. I was in the brig of the Churchill when the universe decided to end with a flash of white fire. The Churchill was a whisper in the dark, an auxiliary warship, sleek, silent, built to slip through shadows like a ghost. Captain Blaine commanded from the bridge like a man forged in the fires of duty. His uniform starched to perfection, but sweat pooling under his collar as the recycled air grew thick and stale. The control room pressed in on him, the hum of consoles a constant drone, the recycled oxygen tasting like metal and regret. Lieutenant Ava, his ever-present shadow, approached with a salute that cracked the air with precision. "We're approaching the planet now, sir," she said, voice clipped, every syllable regulation perfect. The kind of young officer who treated the Imperial military handbook like holy scripture, memorized every clause, every footnote, every punishment for deviation. Blaine didn't reply at first. He didn't need to. The scanner displayed chaos. Official designation GG-MP8999, a hellscape of a world. A cracked sphere with a fiery seam running through its core like a vein of molten rage. Lava rivers glowed with malevolent light. Storms of ash and superheated gas swirled in perpetual fury. And the whole planet seemed to pulse with unfriendly life, though long-range scans insisted it was barren as bone, dead for millennia, a wasteland that had swallowed early explorers whole. He stood slowly, adjusting his collar. The control room pressing in on him like a coffin closing its lid. The Churchill was smaller than the super dreadnoughts he was used to commanding, designed to supplement the larger Navy ships, fast and inconspicuous. A bumblebee, darting from flower to flower unnoticed, in the vast garden of the Imperium. This mission demanded that stealth above all else. The brief had been delivered in a sterile conference room on Varan, the Interstellar shipyard, buzzing with activity outside the reinforced windows. The Navy had received a tip off from a scientist working on one of the Mars outposts. Mars, Multiple Area Response System. A vast web of observation stations which covered virtually the whole Imperium. Vital to keep an eye on things with an empire so expansive, especially since it was impossible to police every boundary in the traditional way. The old methods, patrols, checkpoints, fleets, were relics in a galaxy where phase jumps could bypass light, years in seconds. The Mars scientist had detected an unidentifiable ship in orbit around a planet colloquially named Chaos, located in the Paradonian sector. The planet, known to the Navy by the official code GG-MP8999, was a sphere of barren wasteland. Thus the discovery of the ship had alarmed the admirals, had it found something the early explorers had missed. What was worse? Early scans suggested that the mysterious ship was armed to the teeth. Welon. Cannons. Your name it. Loitering without a proper authorization, not to mention carrying illegal armaments, gave the Navy enough justification to intervene. What reason could the ship have for being there? The Admiralty Board had come up with several possibilities. One option was that an unauthorized terraforming process was taking place on the planet. Another possibility was that a rebellion was forming. Admiral Blaze, one of the key commanders of the Navy, had argued that they should send a fleet of ships to neutralize the threat, but the rest of the board had argued for more furtive tactics. The ship was unregistered and of an unknown origin. It would be foolish to blast them to kingdom come before learning of their purposes. Foolish to destroy every trace of evidence. In the end, it was decided that a single vessel would be sent to ascertain the situation. Now that very ship was approaching the planet. "Captain, you might want to take a look at this," Lieutenant Ava said, her voice tightening like a wire-pulled taut. The captain peered at the scanner and gulped. The ship they had been sent to investigate, now in visual range, was almost the size of 2 Imperial super dreadnoughts. Before the captain could begin to think properly about their next move, there was a loud crash, and the deck of the Churchill shuddered violently. Crew members stumbling, consoles sparking with electrical fury. "Enemy fire!" the lieutenant shouted, her composure cracking for the first time. "General quarters," the captain cried, his voice steady despite the chaos. The crew jumped to battle stations, preparing to fire on the enemy ship. Captain Blaine had been prepared for a fight. Naval commanders always had to be. But he hadn't expected one. The mission was supposed to have been peaceful. They were to make contact with the mysterious ship and find out their intentions, not engage in combat. Bloody admirals, he thought bitterly, his mind racing, stingy with their ships. Just one tiny warship to confront this beast. I could really do with back up right about now. "Concentrate fire!" Captain Blaine said, his voice cutting through the alarms. "Antimatter cannons. Fire! Phase torpedoes. Fire!" Another crash rocked the ship, the hull groaning under the assault. The captain glanced at one of the screens. They were too close to the planet to make a phase jump. The operator manning the antimatter cannons checked the console. The weapon was fully charged. He slammed his hand down, but it never touched the launch button. A plasma bolt shot out from the enemy ship, blinding white, searing through the void. The last thing the crew saw was the intense light as it pierced the hull of the ship. In a mere moment, the area of space they had occupied was empty. Only debris remained, scattering into the void like the ashes of a funeral pyre. I was in that brig when it happened. Harlan Glitz, spice smuggler, ex-cadet. 5 years for trying to bribe an admiral with a crate of Veronian firewine. Bad timing. Worse luck. The blast wave hit the cell block first. Metal screamed. I was thrown against the bars, ribs cracking, blood filling my mouth. The porthole showed the black ship. Massive, silent, a predator in the dark. Then the plasma lance came, white hot, melting everything. I remember the heat, the light, the void rushing in. Then nothing. I woke later, choking on recycled air, gray jumpsuit stamped, P.I. Property of the Imperium. 5 years on Malice. The Churchill erased from records. The black ship a ghost story for drunk spacers. The prison ship Vengeance was a floating tomb, a warehouse of despair. The floor. Front entrance to a massive open space. Almost like a warehouse, which was called the floor. Prisoners were generally confined to the floor, the canteen, and the living quarters. The floor was usually where prisoners would be forced to perform menial tasks. Cells were reserved for the most violent. The back entrance led to several other parts of the ship, including the canteen, the living quarters, the flight deck, and the officer's lounge. Commander Harlan stood on a crate, brandy on his breath, smile sharp as a shiv. "My name is Commander Harlan. You will find that I am a fair and just man, but that I can also be ruthless if you get on the wrong side of me. If you all behave like civilized people, we can look forward to a pleasant journey. If not, you will spend the trip in irons. Pleasant." Prison ships were anything but pleasant. Often, prisoners were forced to work in the engine room, which could be extremely hazardous due to radiation leaks and malfunctioning equipment. "Providing there is no trouble," Commander went on, "you will not be forced to do any kind of work. Behave like good little girls and boys, and we will get along just fine." He emphasized the word girls. "That's all," Commander went on. "I'm going to deactivate your handcuffs now, and I expect you all to be on your best behavior for the duration of the flight." The commander had the air of a schoolteacher addressing a class of wayward children. He activated a switch, and all of the handcuffs clicked open. The men stretched their arms and wrists gratefully. "Make planetfall in approximately 100 hours, the commander said. He turned to his guards and nodded. "Good work. I suggest we retire to the officer's lounge and get ourselves a large brandy." To Glitz's astonishment, every single one of the guards filed out of the floor, following Commander to the officer's lounge. It had to be some sort of joke. It was a total contravention of Imperial regulations to leave a ship of prisoners unattended. Glitz knew this well, because he had once read the entire Imperial military handbook. When he was 16, he had been a cadet in the Imperial Army, before being unceremoniously discharged for a romantic liaison with an older female officer. Romantic relationships were strictly forbidden between members of the armed forces. It had completely ruined his life, but somehow he still didn't regret it. With the roar of engines, the ship began to rise into the air. Glitz glanced around at the occupants of the ship. Another man might have been intimidated by being in a room full of prisoners with no official authority present. But Glitz wasn't the kind of man to be easily intimidated. He wasn't particularly large, but he wasn't weak either, and he had picked up a few tricks in his years of being a spice trader for the East Galaxy Company. Most people didn't realize how tough it was to pilot a freighter. But there was always some bastard that wanted to steal your cargo. "Wanted to play me?" Glitz looked up. A skinny man was pointing towards a chessboard laid out on one of the tables. He nodded. "Okay." The two men sat down at the table. It was a real chessboard with metal pieces, and Glitz thought it looked quite old-fashioned. He wasn't really a chess player anyway, But the last time he had played it was with a holographic board. "I'll be white," the man said. The newcomer had white hair and small dark eyes, and a sort of nervous energy. Glitz guessed that he was in his early 30s. "What's your name?" Glitz said. "Dooland. Roger Dooland." "You a Proteist?" "Doland." Religion was frowned upon by the Imperium, as the Senate disliked any other organization that could hold power over people. Religions could become a conflicting source of loyalty. This would be especially problematic if there was ever a disagreement between the Imperium and a church. The official religion of the galaxy was formerly monarchism, a kind of emperor worship. But it no longer had a statutory place in society, and it was hardly ever practiced, largely because the Senate discouraged it. The last thing they wanted was for the people to be loyally devoted to the emperor. Inhabitants of several planets in the Imperium adhered to a religion called Proteism. It was a curious amalgamation of a few old religions, including planetarity and holism, and it boasted many celebrity members. It was perhaps most famous for its peculiar belief system, holding that the only way to attain salvation was to engage in sexual encounters with complete strangers. "Why do I look like a Proteist?" Glitz pointed at his hand. "Your ring." "Oh, right." Dolan glanced down at the ring on his index finger. Prisoners were allowed to keep one item of jewelry if it had sentimental value. It was engraved with a purple eye, which was one of the symbols of Proteism. "No, this isn't sentimental. I just told them that. I just found this in the street. I thought I could use it as a knuckle duster if someone attacked me in here." Looking around, Doland felt that depictions of convicts in popular vidfilms had been greatly exaggerated. When the guards had all left the floor, he had felt an overpowering wave of terror, but no one had tried to beat him up or do something worse. Yet, Glitz nodded at Doland. "Your move." Doland moved one of his pawns 2 spaces forward. He had never been very good at chess, but it was useful for passing the time. Doland was just grateful that he didn't have to work in the engine room. And like the other prisoners, he was determined to obey the rules so he could keep his surprising measure of liberty. "So what you in for?" Glitz said, moving one of his pieces. "Voting fraud." Dolan sighed and leaned back in his chair. "I live on Opus, and we use a computerized system for voting in our regional leaders. Each person of legal voting age is sent a transmitter with 2 buttons, one for each regional governor. The 2 candidates were Jog Rasput and Chal Hens. Now Jog's a nasty piece of work. He's been involved in more scandals than a tabloid news feed. But for some reason the people of our region always vote him in. On voting day I was especially fed up, so I took my wife's transmitter and voted for Charl." "So you had 2 votes?" Dolan nodded. "How did they find out?" "The bitch told them. She would have voted for Charl anyway. Of course. She voted for him in the last election. But she'd been looking for an excuse to inform on me anyway. Got another man waiting in the wings, I reckon." Glitz felt a strange mixture of pity and amusement. He felt sorry for Doland, but at the same time he couldn't help finding it slightly funny that his wife had managed to get him exiled to Malice. "How long's your sentence?" Glitz said. Doland tapped his fingers on the table. "What about you?" "Same." 5 years. Glitz nodded. 5 stinking years on the most miserable planet in the universe. He stared at the board, formulating his next move. Eventually, he decided which piece to pick up. The ship shuddered violently. Lights flickered. The chess pieces clattered across the board. Doland grabbed the table, knuckles white with fear. "What the hell?" Glitz stood. "We're off course." He knew the sound of a dying nav system, all too well. He'd heard it above Kessel 9 when pirates gutted his freighter. Someone had wanted us dead. I moved fast. The bridge hatch was locked. I pulled a thin wire from my boot heel. Old smuggler's trick. And popped it open in 8 seconds flat. Doland followed, trembling like a leaf in a storm. The bridge was a tomb. Consoles bled red warnings. The nav screen screamed one word: chaos. Dead ahead, filling the viewport with its molten fury. Dolan's voice cracked. "We're going to crash." I slid into the pilot's chair, fingers flying over controls I hadn't touched since cadet days. Not if I can help it. The planet loomed. Lava rivers glowing like arteries of fire. Black storms swirling with ash and lightning. A mouth hungry for steel and flesh. I pulled up diagnostics. Thrusters at 58%. Nav locked by an internal override. Someone on board had sabotaged us. Doland pointed to the lounge feed on a side console. Commander Rika and his guards sprawled across couches. Brandy glasses shattered on the floor. Drugged, dead. Their faces purple, eyes bulging. "Focus," I snapped. "We need the override code now." Heavy footsteps thundered behind us. Core. Murderer. Mountain of muscle. Prison tattoos crawling up his neck. Burst in with 3 goons, eyes wild with power. "Bridge is ours!" he roared. Step away from the controls. I didn't look up. We're 80 minutes from impact. Genius. You want to steer straight into a volcano. Core cracked his knuckles, the sound like breaking bones. I said. I spun, wire in hand, and whipped it across his throat. He choked, eyes bulging. I followed with a knee to the gut. He hit the deck hard, gasping. The others froze, fear replacing bravado. "Anyone else want to play captain?" I asked, voice low and deadly. Silence. Doland exhaled shakily. "Remind me not to piss you off." "Core," I said. "Get your boys to secure the floor. We've got work to do." He rubbed his neck, grudging respect in his eyes. "Yes, sir." On the floor, chaos had erupted. Tables overturned. Fights broke out over canned rations. A wiry kid named Tekka, computer savant, voting fraud like Doland, was trying to calm a riot with logic, his voice high and frantic. I pushed through the crowd. "Listen up. We're crashing into Chios unless we take the ship. Anyone who wants to live, follow me." Some hesitated, fear rooting them. Most followed, desperation overriding doubt. Back on the bridge, Tekka cracked the nav lockout in 5 minutes flat, his fingers a blur. Doland found the Churchill's last transmission in the wreckage. a data cube with coordinates, and Blaine's final log. Blaine saw it. Doland whispered, voice trembling. The black ship. It wasn't attacking. It was hunting something on Chaos. I pulled us out of the dive with seconds to spare. The Vengeance skimmed the atmosphere, heat shields glowing like suns, the hull screaming in protest. Then the comms crackled to life. A voice, cold as the void, mechanical and ancient. Prison transport Vengeance. You are in restricted space. Surrender or be destroyed. I looked at the scanner. The black ship. It had followed us through the dive, silent and relentless. Dolan's voice shook. That's the ship that killed the Churchill. I gripped the controls, knuckles white. Then let's not die like they did. The black ship fired a warning shot. A plasma lance grazed our hull, alarms screaming in fury. I dove the Vengeance into an asteroid field, engines howling in protest. The black ship pursued, weaving through the rocks like a shadow-given form. We had minutes, maybe less. The hunt was on. I'm Jex Harlan, and I've flown through hell with a grin and a prayer. But this was a prison barge with a death wish, screaming through an asteroid field with a monster on our tail. The Vengeance bucked and shuddered like a dying beast. Engines coughing blood as massive rocks the size of moons whipped past the viewport in a deadly ballot. The black ship pursued, silent and relentless, its plasma lances carving glowing scars across the void, narrowly missing us by meters that felt like millimeters. Each near hit sent shockwaves through the hull, alarms screaming in a cacophony that drowned out thought. I rerouted every scrap of power to the shields, fingers dancing over consoles, slick with sweat and blood from a cut on my forehead. The bridge was a war zone of flashing red lights and sparking panels. Tekka hunched over the weapons station. Popguns against a Titan, but better than nothing. His wiry frame tense as he calibrated the railguns for desperate potshots. Options. I barked, voice hoarse from shouting over the alarms. My throat raw from recycled air, thick with ozone. Dolan scrolled through the nav logs on a side console, his face pale in the red emergency lights, white hair plastered to his skull with sweat. The override came from inside the ship. Someone on board wanted us dead. Drugged the guards with something fast, acting. Locked the nav on Chaos with a timed sequence. It wasn't random. It was precise. Kor growled from the doorway, rubbing his bruised throat where my wire had left a red welt. One of the guards, a traitor in uniform. Or one of us, Tekka said quietly, not looking up from his console. His voice steady but laced with accusation. 50 prisoners. Anyone could have smuggled the drug, hacked the system. The bridge went silent. Suspicion thick as smoke, eyes darting between faces. Trust was a luxury we couldn't afford, not with death closing in. I didn't have time for paranoia. Focus. We need to run or fight. That thing's twice our size, armed like a dreadnought's nightmare, and it's not stopping. The black ship fired again. A plasma lance punched through our port shield with a deafening crack, the deck tilting violently to starboard. Sparks showered from overhead panels like deadly rain. A prisoner in the corridor screamed as a console exploded, shrapnel tearing into flesh. The smell of burned meat filling the air. Shields at 30%. Tekka shouted. Another hit like that, and we're vented. Run. Doland voted, voice trembling, his ringed hand clutching the console edge. Fight. Kor said, cracking his knuckles. The sound like breaking bones in the tension. I made the call, mind racing through smuggler instincts. We hide. Dive into the densest cluster. Tekka, mask our signature with false echoes off the rocks. Doland, dig deeper into the Churchill data. Find anything about what that ship wants. Kor, get back to the floor and keep order. No riots. I pushed the Vengeance into the heart of the asteroid field. Engines screaming in protest, the hull groaning as micrometeorites pinged off the plating. The black ship followed, weaving through the chaos with unnatural grace, like it was part of the void itself, anticipating every turn. Hours passed in a blur of near misses and desperate maneuvers. I piloted on instinct, hands steady despite the adrenaline crash. Tekka rigged the sensors to emit false signatures, bouncing our signal off rocks to create ghost images. Dolan pored over the Churchill's data cube, his eyes widening as fragments decoded. There's something on the planet, he said. Voice hushed with awe and fear. Coordinates in the ruins. Ancient structures pre-Imperium. The black ship wants it. Blaine's log mentions a vault, a device. Something that could change everything. I stared at the fiery world below, visible through gaps in the asteroids. Lava rivers, glowing like veins of hellfire. Then we beat them to it. Land in the lava canyon. Use the geothermal heat to mask our signature. Prep a team. We landed hard in a canyon of molten rock, the Vengeance settling with a hiss as heat shields glowed red, hot, the hull ticking as it cooled in the sulfur. Choked air. The black ship orbited above, waiting like a patient predator, scanning but not descending. Yet, I led a team into the ruins. Me, Doland, Tekka, Kor, and 5 others. Hardened prisoners who'd proven loyal in the chaos. The air stank of sulfur and death, thick enough to chew. The ground trembling with volcanic fury beneath our boots. Ancient towers of black glass rose around us, etched with symbols that hurt to look at. Pre-Imperium, alien wrong, twisting the eye and mind. We moved in formation. Plasma rifles scavenged from the armory. Suits sealed against the heat. Sweat poured down my back, the suit's cooling system straining. Doland clutched the data cube like a talisman, guiding us via Blaine's coordinates. In the center of the ruins, a vault, sealed with energy fields that hummed with ancient power, glowing with inner light, pulsing faintly. Tekka cracked it in 7 minutes flat, sweat pouring down his face as he bypassed locks with a jury-rigged decoder. Precursor tech, he muttered. Older than the Imperium by millennia. Inside a device, crystalline, pulsing like a living heart, the size of a fist, facets catching the lava light in hypnotic patterns. Doland whispered, voice odd. It's a phase core. Old tech. Could jump a fleet across the galaxy in a blink. Precursor relic explains the black ship. Kor grinned, eyes gleaming with greed. We're rich. filthy rich. Sell this to the right buyer. We own planets. I didn't smile. We're bait. That ship's been hunting this for centuries. Touch it wrong, and we're ash. The ground shook violently. Alarms in our suits blared. The black ship descended, landing with a thunderous boom that cracked the canyon walls. Troops in matte armor poured out, tall, faceless, moving with mechanical precision. Not human, not imperial, something else. Their weapons hummed with energy that made my teeth ache and my skin crawl. Vibro, blades glowing. We fought. The first trooper lunged at me, blade slicing air. I parried with my rifle, sparks flying, then fired point, blank into its chest. It staggered but didn't fall, armor too thick. Core charged like a bull, crushing one's helmet with his fist, losing 2 fingers to a counter. Slash. Blood spraying as he roared. Tekka hacked their comms from a portable terminal, sowing confusion with false orders in their language. Doland crawled through a vent like a rat, emerging behind enemy lines to plant a thermal grenade that vaporized 3. Plasma bolts lit the ruins, lava casting hellish shadows. One of our team took a hit to the throat, gurgling as he fell into a fissure. Another lost a leg, screaming until Core Mercy killed him. We escaped with the core, Dolan clutching it barely. 2 of our team didn't make it back, their bodies lost to the lava. Back in orbit, the black ship pursued with renewed fury, lances grazing our hull, shields failed, alarms screamed. I had 1 card left. I activated the core in the engine bay, Tekka rigging it to the phase drive. Space folded around us, reality twisting like cloth in a ring-gear. The ship groaning as precursor tech overrode Imperial limits. The phase jump dumped us near Varan, alarms blaring across every Imperial channel. The Navy was coming. Dreadnought's phase, jumping in. Weapons hot, hailing us as escaped convicts. We had the core. We had proof. The black ship wasn't a rebel or a pirate. It was older. A relic of a war the Imperium had buried deep. A precursor guardian hunting its lost heart. Doland decoded the Churchill's final transmission, in full on the journey back. Blaine had seen the ruins, the vault, the core. The black ship was hunting it, not destroying for sport. Coordinates matched. The Imperium knew, had always known. We docked at Terminal Island under heavy guard, Marines in power armor escorting us through corridors of steel and suspicion to the Admiralty board. I stood before them in the grand chamber, burned, bleeding, the core clutched like a grenade, its pulse sensing with my heartbeat. You sent the Churchill to die, I said, voice raw from battle. You knew what was on Chaos. You wanted the core for yourselves, to weaponize precursor tech. Admiral Blaze leaned forward from the high table, cybernetic eye wearing, focusing on me like a targeting laser. You're a convict, Harlan. A smuggler. You have no idea what you've done. That core could power a fleet, or destroy one. It's not a toy for prisoners. I know exactly what I've done, I said, stepping forward despite the guards' rifles. I've given the galaxy a choice. Keep your empire of lies, or face the truth about the precursors. The war you buried, the tech you hoard. The board murmured. Blaze's face hardened. They sentenced us to death by phase disintegration, a painful unraveling of atoms. But the core, they couldn't destroy it without unraveling half the phase network. The very backbone of imperial travel, trade, war. Testing showed it was keyed to precursor systems, indestructible by known means. So they made a deal in a sealed chamber, away from recorders. We'd disappear into obscurity. The core would vanish into a black site, studied in secret. The black ship would be handled by a fleet of dreadnoughts, erased as a threat. I took the deal, shaking Blaze's cybernetic hand. But I kept a copy of the data cube, hidden in my boot lining, encrypted with Tekka's help. Years later, on the backwater moon Ashfall, I run a bar called The Last Jump, a dust-choked rock where the sun is a rumor and the air tastes of rust and regret. The bar smells of stale oil, engine grease, and the faint ozone of phase coils from ships docking in the crater port. Doland tends bar with trembling hands, his nervous energy channeled into perfect pores, chatting with patrons about voting scandals long forgotten. Tekka fixes ships in the back hangar, his cybernetic arm whirring as he welds hull plates for smugglers and exiles. Core bounces drunks with one meaty arm and a shotgun slung over his shoulder, his missing fingers a badge of honor, his roar scattering fights before they start. We're ghosts. The Imperium erased our records. Our sentences commuted to exile on this forgotten rock. Official story died in a prison riot. But ghosts have long memories. And the data cube holds everything. The Churchill's last moments, the black ship's design scans, the phase core schematics, Blaine's log, enough to topple the Senate, enough to start a war. I keep it close, always, tucked in my boot, a constant weight against my ankle, a reminder of chaos, of the core's pulse, of friends lost. Every night, I look at the stars through the bar's grimy viewport and wonder, the black ship is still out there hunting. And one day, it'll come for what we stole. I'll be ready. Because I'm Jex Harlan. And I don't lose twice. I'm Jex Harlan. And I've broken more laws than most men have broken promises. But this was treason on a galactic scale. And I was just getting started. The deal was simple. Disappear into obscurity on Ashfall. The core vanishes into an imperial black site, studied by scientists in sealed labs. The black ship is handled by a fleet of dreadnoughts, blasted to atoms or captured for reverse engineering. We get to live as ghosts, our names erased, our pasts buried. But the data cube, I kept it, hidden in the lining of my boot, a smuggler's habit die hard, encrypted layers deep. The moon is called Ashfall, a dust-choked rock orbiting a gas giant, where the sun is a rumor filtered through perpetual storms, and the air tastes of rust, regret, and recycled despair. My bar, The Last Jump, is a ramshackle dome on the crater's edge, smelling of stale oil, engine grease, the faint ozone of phase coils from ships docking in the makeshift port. Patrons are smugglers, exiles, bounty hunters, everyone with a price on their head or a secret to sell. Doland tends bar with trembling hands, his nervous energy channeled into perfect pores, chatting with patrons about voting scandals on opus long forgotten. His protest ring now, a lucky charm polished by years. Tekka fixes ships in the back hangar, his cybernetic arm, whirring as he welds whole, plates for smugglers and exiles. Muttering about precursor code in the core's schematics. Core bounces drunks with one meaty arm and a shotgun slung over his shoulder. His missing fingers a badge of honor. His roar scattering fights before they start. His loyalty fierce as ever. We're ghosts. The Imperium erased our records in a quiet purge. Our sentences commuted to exile on this forgotten rock. Official story, died in a prison riot during transfer. But ghosts have long memories, and the data cube holds everything. The Churchill's last moments frame by frame. The black ship's design scans down to the rivet. The phase core, schematics with precursor annotations. Blaine's final log whispering of ancient wars. Enough to topple the Senate. Enough to start a rebellion that could burn the galaxy. I keep it close. Always. Tucked in my boot. A constant weight against my ankle. A reminder of chaos. Of the core's pulse sensing with my heart. Of friends lost in lava and void. One night, a dust storm howls outside, rattling the dome like bones in a grave. The door creaks open, hinges screaming. A woman steps in, navy coat dusted red with ashfall's iron oxide. Her face scarred from plasma burns, one eye cybernetic and glowing faint blue in the dim light. She scans the room with military precision, then locks on me behind the bar. Harlan. I don't flinch, though my hand drifts to the plasma pistol under the counter, finger on the trigger. Lieutenant Ava. Thought you died on the Churchill. Saw the blast take the bridge. I did, she says, voice flat as a blade. No emotion in her rebuilt vocal cords. They rebuilt me in a black site. Cybernetics, neural implants, full memory wipe and reprogram. Orders from Blaze himself. Find the core, find you. Bring both back, or burn the evidence. Doland freezes mid-pour. Al foaming over the glass, splashing the bar. Tekka's wrench clatters in the back, echoing. Core cracks his knuckles, shotgun rising from behind the door. Ava's coat parts slowly. A plasma pistol gleams, military issue, overcharged barrel humming. You have something that doesn't belong to you, she says, stepping closer, boots crunching on peanut shells. I smile, slow and dangerous, buying time. Everything I have belongs to me. Earn it, Lieutenant. Or is the new you just a puppet? The bar erupts into chaos. Core charges like a bull in a china shop. Ava fires without hesitation. The blast takes his arm at the shoulder, cauterizing as it severs flesh and bone. He roars in agony and fury, swinging his shotgun one-handed, pellets shredding tables and walls. Tekka hurls a heavy wrench. It clangs off Ava's cybernetic skull with a spark and a dent. Dolan dives behind the bar, scrambling for the emergency rifle, stashed under the cash drawer. I tackle Ava over the counter. We crash through tables, wood splintering, glasses shattering into a rain of shards. Her cybernetic arm pins my throat, servos whining, strength crushing windpipe. I jam the data cube into the port at her neck, fingers slick with blood. Lights die. The bar plunges into darkness. Emergency strobes flickering on in red pulses. When visibility returns, Ava's on her knees amid the wreckage, eyes blank, the cube in her neural net. Data streams across her iris. Schematics, coordinates, the truth of precursors and imperial lies. She whispers, voice glitching between human and machine. It's beautiful. The precursors, the war, the core is all connected. Then she collapses, smoke curling from her port, body twitching in overload. The Navy comes at dawn, no subtlety. Dreadnoughts blot out the sky, phase signatures rippling the air like heat waves. Drop pods rain down, Marines in power armor breaching the dome. They want the core. They want us. They want the truth buried again, Ava's failure a loose end. We run, but not blind. The last jump becomes a war zone. Tekka rigs the phase core, smuggled from the black site in a daring heist months ago, to the bar's power grid, creating a localized jump field. Doland hotwires a shuttle in the hangar, engines screaming to life amid blaster fire. Core holds the door with one arm and a shotgun, roaring defiance as Marines breach, his blood soaking the floor. I stand in the center, core in hand, the crystalline heart pulsing with ancient power. Sensing to the grid, Marines pour in. Plasma fire lights the room. I activate the jump. The phase field rips us apart. Space folds. Reality screams. We're gone. Bar, shuttle, core. We land on chaos. The canyon a furnace of memory. The vengeance wreckage long gone, but the ruins eternal. The black ship waits, larger up close. A cathedral of death scarred from our last fight, orbiting like a vulture. It descends as we exit the shuttle. Troops pour out. Hundreds, faceless, relentless, upgraded since last time. We fight in the ruins, plasma fire lighting the night. Lava casting hellish shadows on alien symbols. I take a vibroblade to the gut early, hot blood soaking my shirt, pain a white fire. Core loses an eye to a plasma burn, still swinging his shotgun like a club. Tekka's arm is crushed under a falling pillar of black glass, bones snapping. Dolan screams as a trooper snaps, his neck with mechanical precision, body crumpling. I crawl to the core through ash and blood, fingers leaving trails. Activate it with trembling hands, the pulse flaring. The black ship screams, a sound that shatters minds, eardrums bursting. Space tears open, a rift, a mouth of pure void swallowing light. I fall in, the core clutched to my chest, friends' bodies vanishing behind. I wake in the void, drifting among stars in a debris field. The core is gone, phased away. The black ship is gone, rift closed. My friends are gone, echoes in memory. But I'm alive. The data cube somehow intact, still in my boot. Ava's upload a ghost in the machine. I'm Jex Harlan, and the galaxy will burn before I lose again. I'm Jex Harlan, and I've stared into the void and blinked first. But the void, it never blinks. It waits, patient as entropy. I drifted for days, maybe weeks, in the phase rift's aftermath. Time losing meaning in the starless dark between realities. My suit's oxygen recycled endlessly, but hunger gnawed, dehydration cracked my lips. A derelict freighter, half melted from an ancient battle, became my lifeline. I patched the hull with spit, prayers, scavenged sealant from emergency kits, limped the wreck to the nearest outlaw outpost on a comet's tail, phase drive sputtering. The Imperium had moved on. Official feeds called the black ship a myth, the core destroyed in a containment failure. My friends, martyrs to a lie, their names erased in a data purge. Asphalt bar, blown up in a gas leak. But I had the data cube, Ava's last gift. Her cybernetic mind had absorbed it, then uploaded a perfect copy to me before she died. A final act of rebellion against her reprogramming. I was a ghost with a secret that could burn empires. I built a new life on the fringe worlds. Smuggling again. Spice runs through nebula storms, weapons to rebel cells, forbidden precursor artifacts to black market collectors. The cube was my ace. Sold in encrypted pieces to underground networks. Never the whole truth. Enough to fund safe houses, fake IDs, a growing web of allies. Enough to start a quiet war against the Senate's lies. The black ship never came. But I felt it watching from the dark between stars. Patient as a predator in tall grass, its shadow lengthening. Then the dreams started. Nightmares of chaos, the vault open and empty. The core pulsing like a heart in my hands. Faceless troops marching. A voice in a language older than stars, whispering my name, coordinates, warnings. I woke screaming every night, sweat. Soaked. The cube burning against my skin like a brand. One job changed everything. A client contacted me through dead drops. Passage to the Paradonian sector, paid in pure phase crystals, rare as honest senators, priceless for jump tech. I took it, sensing opportunity. The client was a woman waiting in a shadowed cantina on a mining asteroid. Scarred face from old burns, cybernetic eye, glowing red with precursor mods. She called herself Echo, a name from ancient myths, her voice layered with static. "You're Harlan," she said, sliding a holo projector across the table. "The one who stole from the gods and lived." I didn't deny it, activating the holo. The black ship docked at a hidden precursor station in uncharted space. Coordinates burned into my brain like acid. "They're rebuilding it," she said. "The core you took. It was one of many in a network. They want them all to wake the fleet. Precursor armada buried in rifts." My hands shook, crystals clinking. "Why me? Why now?" "Because you're the only one who's seen it and lived. And because the shadow is coming." Blaze activated the signal. The war never ended. I took the job. Assembled a crew. Old allies contacted through secure channels. New blood vetted for loyalty. Echo, a precursor hybrid. Survivors from Ashfall raids. Rebels hungry for truth. We stole the reckoning. A sleek frigate from a Navy scrapyard. Fast, armed. Cloaked with Echo's precursor tech. We hit the station at what passed for dawn in the void. Chaos erupted immediately. Plasma fire lighting corridors in strobes. Screams echoing in 0E as we breached airlocks. We fought through automated defenses. Turrets spitting needles. AI drones swarming like insects. Precursor guardians in ancient armor waking from stasis. I led the push to the vault. Plasma rifle hot in my hands. Found another core, bigger. Pulsing with malevolent life. Facets showing visions of fleets. Then it found me. The black ship. Not a copy. The original. Scarred from chaos, larger in person. Docking with a thunderous clang. that vibrated the station. Troops poured out. Thousands, relentless, upgraded with core energy. I fought room by room. Lost men to blades and bolts. Lost blood from a gut wound. Lost hope as numbers overwhelmed. I reached the core with Echo's help, her eye interfacing. Activated it. Space folded wrong. The station screamed as reality tore, bulkheads buckling. I woke on chaos again, alone in the ruins. The vault open, empty. The reckoning gone, a voice behind me. Familiar and hated, boots crunching on ash. "You can't stop it, Harlan." I turned, knife in hand despite the pain. Admiral Blaze. Older gray at temples. Cybernetic arm gleaming chrome. Eyes dead as vacuum, no humanity left. "You knew," I said, blood dripping from my wound onto sacred ground. "I built it," he said, pistol rising. "The war never ended. The black ship is the Imperium's shadow. The cores are its heart. We woke it to win the next war. Against the precursors returning." He fired. I smiled. Weak but defiant, hitting the trigger on the cube, rigged to the reckoning's core, before the jump. A galaxy-wide broadcast. Every channel, every planet, every ship. The truth. Precursor war details, Imperial collusion, cores as weapons of mass phase disruption. Blaine's log, Ava's testimony. The galaxy heard. Riots sparked on 100 worlds. Fleets fractured, senators fled. Blazes shot grazed. I fell into lava. The cube's signal blazing eternal. I woke in an Imperial medbay cyber. Patched, tubes in arms. Guards outside but sympathetic. Broadcast changed everything. A nurse whispered, "You're a hero to half the galaxy." I laughed, blood in my mouth. Heroes don't survive, but I did. The war began openly. I lead shadow hunters, rebels, exiles, precursors like Echo who survived the rift. We find cores in hidden vaults. Destroy them in controlled blasts. The Imperium crumbles world by world. Friends avenged in fire. But black fragments escape the rifts, rebuilding. The hunt continues eternal. I'm Jex Harlan. The end is no end. Only the shadow and the light I carry.